Benching is one of the fastest ways to lose a good player, and most of the time it has nothing to do with performance. It happens when someone logs in a raid night, sees they're not in on the boss, and they don't really understand why. 9 times out of 10 they don't argue, they don't complain, they just stop investing. And that's what I want to talk about today. How's it going, guys? I'm Abysmal, and I'm the Guildmaster and Raid Leader for 2-Night Mythic Raiding Guild in World of Warcraft. This channel is about the behind-the-scenes systems that keep raiding guilds alive, and benching is one of the most misunderstood systems in the game. If you're running a roster that's bigger than 20 players, benching is unavoidable. The question isn't if you bench people, it's whether your guild trusts how you do it. The biggest mind shift you can make is this. Benching is not a judgment of value, it's a logistical decision. Every functional raiding guild benches players. The difference is whether they do it openly, predictably and fairly, or quietly, reactively and inconsistently. Most bench drama doesn't come from sitting, it comes from the silence that comes beforehand. Mistake number 1. Treating the bench like a punishment. In a lot of guilds, benching only happens when something goes wrong. Low damage, missed mechanics, or a bad attitude. That teaches players one thing very quickly. If I'm benched, I messed up. Even when that's not what you intended, the problem with this approach is it turns benching into a threat instead of a tool. People stop focusing on improvement and start focusing on not being the one who sits. In a healthy system, benching isn't reactive, it's planned. If sitting only happens when there's a problem, the system's already broken. However, if the benching is due to performance, let them know in advance. Don't wait until 10 minutes before raid to tell them they're not playing tonight. It's just not fair. Mistake number 2. Benching without context. This is where most resentment is born. You're sitting tonight. That's it. No explanation, no follow-up, no framing. What players hear isn't neutral. They hear, you're not good enough, but we're not going to say why. And when people don't have information, they fill in the gaps themselves, usually in the worst possible way. Whether it be for roster rotation, for vaults on reclear, comp decisions or role coverage, people can accept decisions they don't love if they understand them. Mistake number 3. Benching the same people over and over. This one happens quietly and it's incredibly damaging. The same players sit week after week, usually because it's easier. It avoids uncomfortable conversations, it protects the core group, and it keeps the raid night smooth in the short term. But what it really does is send a clear message. Some people belong here more than others. And when players feel permanently optional, they stop investing. They don't complain, usually don't explode, they just disengage and eventually leave. If your bench always hits the same names, your roster problem isn't performance, it's fairness. Here's something I've implemented into my guild when our roster grew above 20. If there's a raider who finds themselves more often on the bench than not, once that pattern is recognised, I'll have a conversation with them and let them know that they will most likely not be the first choice for progress. Whatever the reason may be, this could very well be due to performance, or it could be due to other reasons, for example our current roster or what the boss requires. If you see this potentially as being a long-term thing, you need to speak with your raider and set things straight. The conversation had would involve letting them know it's not likely that they would have a consistent raiding spot week in, week out. If the raider is happy with that and they would like to play the reserve role, they would come in clutch when absences occur and fill in when needed. If they don't like the idea, then that's fine. I then suggest if a consistent raiding spot is what you're looking for, I get that, and we suggest it would be better for them to find a guild where they can have that consistent spot. Nobody wants to be hanging on to an empty promise. As a guild master or raid leader, don't promise things you can't guarantee. So, what a healthy bench actually looks like. A healthy bench doesn't feel personal, it feels procedural. That doesn't mean everyone loves it, it means everyone understands it. In a healthy system, benching is discussed openly. Rotations for re-clear are intentional, expectations are set before raid night, and sitting doesn't correlate perfectly with performance. Players know where they stand. They know what sitting means, and they know what it doesn't mean. If benching feels emotional, the system isn't clear enough. Why language matters more than you think. One of the biggest improvements we made wasn't changing who sat, it was changing how we talked about it. Compare these two. You're sitting tonight versus this is a re-clear, so we're going to be rotating people in for each boss so we can get vaults across the whole roster. Or, this is a comp decision, not a performance call. Or, sitting tonight doesn't change your standing. Those statements do the same logistical job, but they land very differently. Language frames intent. When players trust your intent, they are far more willing to accept outcomes they don't like. The uncomfortable truth for leaders. Here's the part that's hardest for a lot of GMs and officers to accept. A good bench system shares discomfort. If the same people always get to play, leadership is avoiding short-term friction at the cost of long-term morale. Fair systems aren't painless, they're evenly painful, and that's what keeps resentment from building. So here's the big takeaway. Benching isn't the enemy of morale, inconsistency is, silence is, surprises are. A good bench system protects your roster, a bad one quietly destroys it. If you're a GM or officer or raid leader, let me know in the comments, what's the hardest part about benching in your guild? Is it fairness, communication, or player reactions? In the next video, we're moving on to something closely connected to this, and that's why recruitment never feels finished. So if your bench system isn't working, recruitment suddenly becomes a very different conversation. Thanks guys for watching. If you enjoyed the video or found something interesting you could take away from it, don't forget to leave a like or subscribe to the channel. It helps me massively. But thanks again, and we'll catch you in the next one.